Hi, everybody. Welcome to this event. Why you should use Flutter? I'm Obum. Call me Obum. Yeah, my full name's Obumuneme Nwabude, but you can call me Obum. You should use Flutter. If you're not using it yet, something is wrong. Okay, nothing is wrong, but Flutter comes with so many things that you should use it. If you don't know what Flutter is a UI toolkit. The definition from the website of Flutter, flutter.dev, is that it is a UI toolkit. Toolkit in the sense that it comes with so many things for Flutter. So Flutter is open source, so anybody can see the code is developed of it, and it was created by Google. But it's available to everybody, and it's created with the programming language which Flutter uses is Dart. Like that's just it. So without wasting much time, let's just dive into the business of today. So we'll be talking about 5 reasons why you should use Flutter. Cross-platform ability, powerful UI engine, proper state management, great developer experience, and the community. So we'll go over each of them one after the other, right? So cross-platform. Now, in the past, in companies or startups or enterprises wanted products, they had to write, they needed their products to be available to every user, independent of wherever the user is, whether the user is on the web or on desktop or mobile. So that they needed a way to create it. And most cases, they will have to hire more developers for each platform. In the world of mobile, you have to hire someone for Android or iOS because they're the most popular operating systems. In the world of desktop, you have to hire different people for macOS, Windows, Linux, and it depends on what the product is. Some products make sense that they have different, they are only on desktop, things like IDEs, Visual Studio Code, Android Studio, RGB, or some make sense that they are available on both desktop and on mobile phones like games and everything. So coding or creating such digital products usually require, let me say, like separate code bases, more developers, and time taking because, I mean, there are different people, different things to do. And the most painful part is when you want to um, update the given software, when you want to add a new feature, you will need to go back to all these developers, and then you go back to all developers, and then add them, get them to add the features that is in question. Like, and it's kind of it's making the whole process of development kind of difficult. It's not meant to be. It's not that bad though, because many people are with it in many big companies are working with such a flow nowadays. But in the better part of it, cross-platform is the ability for a product to work everywhere, right? So there are many cross-platform products. Flutter is not the only one. But Flutter is kind of unique because of how it happened. When Flutter started, the original idea was to create cross-platform solutions, and Android was on focus. The Flutter team was on Android, and the Flutter team, over time, when iOS announced Metal, an API for canvassing in Apple devices, Flutter simply used Metal to progress to that, and that naturally transfers to JavaScript. So it was kind of useful to just convert the Flutter code into the Canvas API, that, and then into JavaScript and make it work in the web. And last year, support for desktop was announced, and this year is all stable. So Flutter can work in both mobile, web, and desktop, and it's cheap. Like running on all these 3 platforms, you just have to maybe hire just Flutter developers. You won't need to go and look for developers for different platforms, right? And then if you want to make any changes, like you just coolly make it in one place and deploy. And you have only one code base, like just one place, not many different repositories for just the same product. So let's look at this example. This is actually the state of my desktop right now. Okay, no, like this is what is on the slide, but I'm going to remove it and go to the desktop. You'll actually see the live version of it. That is the same Flutter code. Like this is the boilerplate template code you get the moment you start Flutter. Just do Flutter create wherever, and I run them both on Windows, on Android, and on web in Chrome. So, okay, let me show you it live. Yeah, so now this is the equivalent. I mean, this is now I'm interacting. This is Chrome. This is an Android operating system, like an emulator. Sorry about this. Like an emulator, and then this is Windows. Like this is a Windows window, as you can see. So that's it. They are all interactive. It's the same Flutter code that is not running as a Windows window, running as an Android app, running as a website. I can refresh the browser. I need to come back up again. And this is all the same Flutter code. Like that's the power of cross-platform in Flutter. And it's going to be exactly the same. It's pixel perfect. Like you push the button as many times, 0 all in the center. If I click on this plus icon at the bottom right of every screen, it simply increments the buttons, increments the number on display. So that's a feel of what cross-platform looks like. So let's say you're creating a product, you won't need to worry about, you just have to like code once and it runs everywhere. So someone may ask, like, how is this possible? What is the logic behind the cross-platform ability of Flutter? So let's take a look at let's go back to the slides. Yeah, let's continue. So let's take a look at how native apps work. So it's kind of technical. Yeah, it is getting technical, but on the right-hand side, platform and services. So the platform you see OEM, like local-based native apps. So this is a scenario with Android or iOS. So you see things like they have a rendering stuff, a place they can render, and they can capture user events like swiping, scrolling, and all that. And then other things like local device services, the camera, playing audio, you can maybe capturing your microphone and everything. So in native coding, when you're coding with Android native or iOS, only for each of those platforms, for example, your app is directly interacting with native code. So that's part of the reason why it's not cross-platform able, right? So like, I'm trying to explain the success behind cross-platform something. So this was kind of an issue because many people have tried solving the cross-platform problem. People have tried to obtain cross-platform issues, and they came with different solutions to cross-platform. For example, in some cases, you might see a bridge. So you see code. You see in some cross-platform solutions, let me take one on the left. You see some bridge that will be interacting with the code written to the platform, right? Or sometimes you can see in the case of many web frameworks, like the picture on the right, like they use web views. So you simply write in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and that will interact with the rendering and the painting on the canvas and take events. But then to interact with local services, platform of a device, you use the bridge. Now, this practice is not bad in itself. There are many apps deployed with so many of them, Ionic, React Native, Cordova, and all the rest are marine. But the issues are, part of the issues here are performance, and also partly it's also flexibility, though not that bad. So the bridge kind of brings in a performance junk, like it weighs down on the device because of the extra bridge routine. It's not native, it's not deep down into the device, right? So and not just that, in most cases, not all APIs are exposed to the user, and sometimes it's not pixel perfect. It's kind of the app you agree with some cross-platform other products kind of depend heavily on the device or something like that. Like you don't have full control, so to speak. But Flutter makes a difference because these are the things that the Flutter team took time to overview before starting the framework. That's another reason why I should be using Flutter, because it was planned for. The planning that was done in Flutter was like they overviewed various existing frameworks. What are the pluses? What are the minuses? Before coming up with Flutter. In Flutter, your app is different from the platform. So in Flutter, your app, like unlike the other ones that your app is part of the platform, in Flutter, your app is different from the platform. And Flutter exposes to you the canvas and its elements to your app, and exposes to you native widgets and everything to your app. So deep down, you have the framework, because Flutter is made up of many things. Flutter is a UI toolkit, right? So available to you, you have the Flutter framework, you have a Flutter engine made up of different things, of which Skia is included. Skia is an engine for rendering images, rasterizing images. It's one of the things found in the Flutter engine. You have, in fact, there's so many things inside Flutter. It's not just the framework, right? The community, everything. So your Flutter app gives you access to like painting pixel perfect, which explains why with the demo we just had, like on Windows, Android, and Chrome, and on web, like it was the same thing. Like the floating action button, the plus icon, it's at the bottom right of every screen. There'll be a top bar. That's a very simple app just for demo, and that's what will happen when you don't Flutter create. But I mean, the aim is to make you understand that Flutter is cross-platform, and Flutter has what we call platform channels or method channels, which permit you to access platform-dependent stuff in the way it is. Like you can expose a plugin for Android, which should be separate from the plugin for iOS, separate from the plugin of web, and everything is kind of smoothly integrated across all three. So, I mean, and all this made Flutter very, very performant. So Dart, the programming language which Flutter is written in, will make Flutter capable of running just into native code like ARM code, ARM64 and all the rest. So it's kind of going to be very, very performant, like stretch the point. It doesn't hang. It doesn't really like if you get the performance graphics of or graphs of Flutter, I see it's very, very close, if not equal to what native give you, right? So that's that about cross-platform ability. So the next thing we'll look at is the UI engine, powerful engine. So the Flutter team thought about everything. We're talking about why you should use Flutter, like what should be the motivations when using Flutter. And we've spoken about how it's cross-platform. So on Flutter's UI engine, so Dart is plain English. Dart is plain English. Let me show you. Let me show you something. So this is Flutter code. This is the generated code for. This is a generated code for Flutter. Something like, okay, I did not delete the comments. I just generated the code now and used. So, but Flutter is plain English. Flutter is plain English, and Flutter is very intuitive. So, you see center on line 67, you see center on line 68, you see child column. Let me see 71, you see text, you have push button many times. Like, even if you have never done programming before, you won't struggle with Flutter because it's kind of, they try their best to really make it easy, like easy to use, like easy to understand. That is with the whole English, like Dart is a programming language on which you write Flutter. Like if you notice, it's a main.dart file. So, but when you're writing Flutter, you notice that it's like Flutter is a framework on top of that. So they have made it to make like scaffold, app bar, list view, column, row, icon, image, like just some kind of simple keywords. You won't always need to come and start using angle brackets or writing some complex stuff. Everything is in one place, right? So UI building is easy. I'm just trying to like show you that, like say, this explains this Android emulator now. You see this Flutter demo homepage. Where is it? It's up here. Abba title, widget title, that was the homepage. And then you have pushed this button many times. You can see the number counter. This text team that of context, text team headline, for just kind of seeing like the fourth level of heading. So it's kind of a little larger text. And you can see the floating action button. Child icons.add. Increment counter was defined here. Set state. So set state is just where you define, you tell it to change. Like we're coming to that. We're coming to state management. So that's that about Flutter. That's about Flutter. So about you how easy it is to, like UI is plain English. Still on the world of UI implementation, Flutter has so many widgets. So many widgets. Like everything in Flutter is a widget. Icon, image, child, app bar, column, row, they're all widgets. And Flutter comes with so many widgets, like in fact, in Flutter alone, in the Flutter source code packages, like all the widgets, you have about 680 widgets available to use. And if those ones are not enough for you, if you go to pop.dev, pop.dev is a package manager for Flutter, and that's where you can, let me show you. So pop.dev, you see every package you need, like everything you need, like, and they're about, let's do a rough search of how many packages are in pop.dev. Let me see. Let me search nothing, empty. You see, I don't know if you can see it yet, 26,436 as of today. If you come back tomorrow, it will be more. Okay, let me see only Flutter packages. Around 24,000 Flutter packages. So each package will have at least one widget to use in Flutter. What am I saying? Like if you feel like the widgets are not enough, this is not like HTML that have a specific number of elements to use or CSS. Like there are so many Flutter packages available for you to use. Like so implementing UIs in Flutter is really cool, like easy. Like the engine is so cool. And you can customize every widget. You can customize every widget the way you want. Like you see, it's a widget tree that is growing up. You have like just like this, the scaffold had an app bar, had a body, had a floating action button. The body had the center. The center had a column. The column had children of text, two text children, all these kind of things. So you keep composing and keep composing. As you go, you build a very big app, but it won't be a problem. Like that's just what makes the UI handling. If anything happens that custom paints, if anything happens that all those widgets are not enough for you, you have custom paints to use, right? Custom paints will like permit you to draw on top of, like, I think just like what Canvas does to JavaScript, for those who are from a JavaScript world, the way you can draw on it, that's something that that's exactly the same thing that Flutter gives you. Then last but not the least, the three separate trees. So Flutter architecture is in such a way that there are three separate trees for rendering, and that's another thing that helps performance. So we have a tree for widgets, a tree for elements, and a tree for render objects. Don't really worry about the last two. Elements and render objects are things you rarely or never, you have to get to a very high level advance of Flutter to ever interact with them, or you will never need to interact with them, but you can. So, but the widgets are enough. Basically, the widgets are immutable, they don't change. They are all final. The moment you make any changes to the UI, the widget is changed. Flutter discards the widget. So you may be worried, like, how does it persist? What Flutter does behind is that it maintains the render object. So if the widget is the same, the widget was changed, but other things are the same inside, like the keys and properties, you simply change the render object. Like, I'm just trying to, I showed this for the sake of performance, to explain to you what happens, to explain what happens in the performance part of Flutter. Like, let's take center, for example. If you ever change the code of center and you had text in the middle, that wrote hello world. If you ever change the text, the render object will only change the paragraph or stuff like that, but the render object itself will not be changed. Yeah, leave all these big, these are mouthful words, single child render object elements. But yeah, that's that about the widget 3 or widget 3s. Just to explain that UI implementation, user interface implementation is kind of easy and cool in Flutter. It's not a big deal, right? So the next point I wanted to check out is state management. We all know React. React is a Flutter framework. It's a web framework, a JavaScript web framework. So the Flutter team had overviewed different frameworks. All right. So there's this particular video where when React was released, where they explained why React was built the way it was built. That is the whole set state in React, for example, because set state is something that actually came from React. So the secret about Flutter is the about state management in React is set state. The moment the secret about state management in Flutter is set state. The moment set state is called, it reboots the widget, it reboots the UI. Remember what I said about the UI tree, that there are separate UI trees. So the moment set state is called, no matter what's happening, Flutter will discard any widgets that have changed, any ones that have changed. The focus is only on the ones that have changed. Not the Flutter just discard the part of the widget tree that has changed and put back a new copy. Because the widget is not a heavy object, and it's just basically key value pairs of its children or its size, its colors, and all the rest. But deep down, painting has been handled by the render objects. So your business with the framework is usually, we have access all of them in the framework, but usually focus also at the widget level. When things change, like let's say our simple counter app, we had to wrap the call of updating it, incrementing in set state. If we do not put it in set state, it won't work. Let's see. Now, let's take, for example, this app and this one. So notice this set state. The build method is called anytime set state happens. So this set state is very important, right? Let me save. So let's update. So apparently maybe I should also make the number bigger so that you feel instead of counter headline 4, text style, font size, let's say 40 font size. Okay, 40 is small. Let's use 100. Good. So a very big number. So let's say I want to change, if I this call to set state in increment counter, if I remove it, if I uncomment it out and change, for example, if I start adding, nothing happens. I don't understand. So it's worth mentioning that it's kind of how state management works in the basic level is with just call set state. And that's cool. You won't need to start handling a lot of stuff to I know. So if you come and start adding, you see, continue back because I've allowed the call of set state. And if I change this thing to, let me say minus instead of increasing, let's be reducing. If you come and click on here, it's going down. So UI building in Flutter, state management in Flutter is easy. Who is muted? Who's unmuted?
Mute everybody, please.
Done. UI building in Flutter is easy. Or sorry, state management handling in Flutter is okay. The moment you call set state, you change the UI, and it's very fast, right? Flutter has 60 frames per second. It guarantees us 60 frames per second on the UI thread. If you're new to programming, I don't really know what threading is. Don't really worry. it's fine. So, but just like where the code runs, something like that. So isolates, if in case you have to do technical things or heavy things with Flutter, and the Flutter app will not, like the UI thread won't carry it, like if you call set state is hanging, then you can use an isolate. We're not going to overview it. We're not going to experiment with it. Isolate is threading, multi-threading in Flutter. A scenario where let's say you have a lot of things doing, like the app is doing a lot of complex things. You can use an isolate, like you can change, it's like web workers in JavaScript. You can shift execution of particular code to another that isolate, like that thread. So the UI will keep being clear, and 60 frames per second will work. 60 frames per second is a guarantee that, like swiping, moving, scrolling, anything the user is doing at runtime, the UI will update immediately based on those changes. That's the guarantee of 60 frames per second. Now, choices. Set state is the basic one that the Flutter comes with. Flutter comes with. So, but and it's okay. You can use set state. You don't use other state management. But we are developers, and over time we focus more on software engineering, because software engineering is beyond just programming or coding. Like the other things about the whole tooling process. As a developer, I have to really worry about every other thing. So the other state management architectures, provider, block, RX Start for reactive using observables, stack architecture, riverport, different things, but all of them down the road uses set state. But the thing is that they make the code abstract out state in a better way. Some introduce dependency injection, which kind of providing services. Sorry if the words are getting technical, but the aim is just for you to understand that state management is such a service. So you won't actually have a lot to stress if you're not comfortable with many of the methods you have available for yourself, like the other ones to help, right? So that's it about state management, developer experience. So coding is it's hard on its own. Like, okay, let me not say coding is hard, but coding is demanding already, right? And every developer wants to spend less time coding. So one main advantage that Flutter comes with in developer experience is one programming language. In the world of coding, of programming web, you have to write HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, like 3 different stuff, like you'll be alternating 2 different files. It's not just web, like across many other stuff, but even in Android native, you have to write XML and write Kotlin or Java. But in Flutter, you're writing that. So that is so nice that it falls both in the world of declarative programming, in the world of imperative programming, in the world of reactive programming. Like Flutter is a combination of all of them. So what it means to you, the developer, when you're writing, when you're coding Flutter, is that you have the opportunity of when you're coding Flutter, you have the opportunity of just writing just in one place, like just seeing one code right in charge of one screen, and all is code. And it's universal, like I said. It supports operating systems, it supports IDEs. If you go to if you go to flutter.dev and try to download Flutter, install Flutter, they'll ask you, are you installing on Windows, Mac OS, Linux, or Chrome? Now let's take Windows, for example. You see, they tell you system requirements, downloading Flutter, the whole process. And then they talk about IDEs, whether you're doing Android Studio, setting up Android, where you're uploading for Windows, setting up Visual Studio for Windows, setting up for web, setting up an editor. You have access to using Android Studio, VS Code. I'm using VS Code, installing the plugins, and you just follow the documentation. There are many videos out there to also guide you on the process, but I'm just trying to make you understand that like it's kind of universal. It's available to everybody, and that's another thing that made it quickly adoptable. Unlike
sorry, your voice, please.
You're not hearing me?
He said your voice is not stable.
Oh, sorry about that. Is the screen stable? Will it be internet?
It's fine from here.
Maybe the person complaining, maybe it's internet. Sorry about that. Maybe it's your internet on your side. Okay, anyways, let's progress. I was saying Flutter is universal. Another beautiful feature, we've already seen the hot reloading feature from Flutter, right? Flutter comes with hot reloading. I already showed the feature many times. Maybe to still give you the picture. Yeah. Oh, I stopped showing Chrome. It's not bad. Let's bring this guy here. So Flutter has DevTools, developer tools. To show the code, let's say let me open developer tools for this Android phone. Let me minimize this Windows. Minimize this guy. Yeah, developer tools. So Flutter comes with developer tools. So the Flutter Dev Tools is available to open in anyone. It shows you everything you need to see about Flutter login, like all the logs, all the print statements, or anything that happens in the Flutter app. I think these are Dev Tools for this. App size. Okay, no, we are not using app size. But this one network. If in case any network calls, I don't mean any network calls because it's a simple base one. But this has a debugger. Like you can place debuggers at breakpoints everywhere. And maybe as you're running the code, you can see what changed or something. This has a resume. Okay, let me place a debugger on minus. Where's a minus? So if I try to copy minus, you see it stops at the debugger. It tells, okay, what is the current state of it? If you open variables, like this, if you don't understand what's happening here, this kind of some core feature in many programming, like how do you handle maybe an error is happening, maybe the code is not working the way you expect, and you can want to check what's the problem, that kind of something. So you can now check variable C counter is 3. And then if I continue the debugger, resume, I can resume from here, I can resume from VS Code. If I continue the debugger, resume, you see that it's not transform and become 2. Yeah, I think I'm going to set point. On the UI, yeah, it's now 2 and no longer 3 because it's supposed to go minus. So that's just a feel of what debugging looks like. The DevTools, Flutter DevTools has a lot of stuff. Now, but I think the most popular part of DevTools you use is the inspector. So the inspector kind of inspects the widgets, which widgets in view, scaffold, brings you out the details tree, the properties, try to visualize it off here. So let me enter select widget mode. So you see in the UI, it has hovered up all the, like the Flutter inspector is just beautiful. It has kind of hovered what's in view, scaffold. If I select center, it will update the inspector. You can see center has picked inside. If I select text you have clicked, you can see it focuses on the you have clicked. So it kind of gives you where which element is. And if I come and click on, let me say, floating action button, or the icon itself, it switches view, and the inspector reflects. So this inspector is kind of available to all Flutter. Okay, someone asked me what IDEs are. Okay, I'll explain later on. Just hold on. Yeah, so that's that. So the inspector is available. You can see if in case maybe you're coding and maybe you expect something to be full screen, but it's half screen or it's not doing as it is, you can come and look at the inspector, look at the details tree, check to see if there are some things you can change. It has a lot of properties, text direction, text align. So it's telling that it's null. So if you change them from your code, maybe text align is null. So if I change it to maybe text align dot right, let's see, here's our code. I'll close this side. Text, let's say text align dot right. Like Flutter is just simple. It's not you should be using Flutter if you're not using Flutter. Okay, you may not feel the change because text is kind of full screen. Let me do like this. Oh, you may not see the change because now this is another thing. Now, let's say I was trying to make this thing go to the right. You have pushed many times. And then let me also increase the font size, style, text style, font size, let's say 50. That's huge. Okay, it does. You can feel the text align, right? So, but the reason why we're not filling it that time was because of the parent column. The column has a main axis alignment center. In summary, main axis alignment kind of how do I align this thing? If you're from a web point, a web side of coding, like you've been coding for the web, it's like display flex. Now let me comment out this as alignment center. You can see it has gone to this start. Also, if I do cross-axis alignment, cross-axis is like the opposite on the horizontal row. But let me see dot start instead of this thing. You can see how our numbers have changed. If I do dot center, I'm just trying to make you understand that as I'm changing these things, it's also changing in the widget inspector. So if I come here under crop, you can see center will speak as center as alignment, main as alignment center. If I change cross axis to start, has it loaded? Start, okay. Okay, let me refresh the inspector. No, it hasn't loaded. Oh, wow. So let me refresh the widget tree here. Then column. You can see it cross as element dot start. So but bottom line is that the developer experience of Flutter is cool. So you have the hot reload feature automatically changing. And don't be afraid. What the secret behind the hot reload feature is that when you're coding, when coding, you have a kind of a virtual machine, that virtual machine provided to the platform. So as you're making the changes, it's just kind of hot reloading and it's changing immediately. But when you want to build the APK, so maybe this APK now, if I try to build this APK, Flutter build APK, I just click the API. What Flutter will do is that it will build this APK, like it will use the ahead of time compiler. That came with a JIT, just-in-time compiler, and AOT, ahead of time compiler. So when we are coding like this, we are using the just-in-time, or we do Flutter run. But when we are building, it will build ahead of time, like it will minimize the code, remove all the dependencies for coding, and give you a very small APK. I think after building this thing now, the APK will be barely around 5 MB for all these flows, and which is very small. But if you use some cross-platform solutions for this, you have something bigger than that. And it's used the Flutter engine. So we'll see the size of the APK when we are done building. So that's that for developer tools. So Flutter comes with good developer experience. If you're having errors, you know where to check from them. If you're already using, if you're already using VS Code, if you're already using Android Studio, VS Code, no matter the ID you're using, you have all the abilities to use whatever operating system to code Flutter or tooling you want to use. And the auto-load feature is another thing that helps the developer experience. Programming, life should be easy, like programming shouldn't be hard. So one last point you're supposed to discuss for Flutter is the wonderful community. So it has always been people. Flutter in itself is a small framework. What made Flutter spark was the fact that it's the community, like it's open source. So many people are contributing to Flutter. Talking about the community, if you go to github.com/Flutter, Flutter has 22,000 forks, 142,000 stars. Like I think it's the highest framework with the highest stars. And the highest is the cross-platform with the highest number of stars out there. And then, I mean, so many contributors, and it's backed by Google, so you're sure that you're rest assured that things will, no matter how things change, like it's been the right path in the closest future. Also, you can see there's a Fuchsia tag here. Fuchsia is an operating system by Google, Fuchsia.dev. So I mentioned this when I was talking about cross-platform. Oh, did I not spell it right? Fuchsia. Okay, maybe I did not spell it right. Fuchsia.dev. So it's still in the build stage. It has not been released yet. But Fuchsia is something that is an operating system entirely. It's not Android. It's open out there, but I think it's coming with support for any hardware, unlike maybe Android or other things, or unlike the current operating systems. So Flutter itself, part of Fuchsia was written with that. So Flutter capable of running on Fuchsia. So you have nothing to lose running Flutter. No one can tell if Fuchsia will go far. Fuchsia has no longer been preparing it, but whatever. So but today's not about Fuchsia, but today's about Flutter, and tell you that if you're not using Flutter, you should start using Flutter. Even for anything, for the fact that it's open source, for the fact that there are many pop.dev packages, there are Flutter groups. We hear of Flutter festival events we've done for this year. We've done had many Flutter events in various places. And then Stack Overflow. If you have any question, any problem you're running Flutter, because a common mistake people always face when running Flutter is to come across these yellow and black lines. So for example, when you write code that doesn't make sense to Flutter, yellow and black lines will pop up. Let me write list view. I don't know if this is correct. Okay, it wasn't a Bolivian issue. Okay, it kind of, what will I, let me put, let me put this thing expanded, admit. Onto column, expanded, no. Column, children, then factor. Yes, welcome. So, like, it should throw errors. Now, the thing is not showing again. It's not showing again, it has gone. So, I'm trying to explain, like, if you now come and check the inspector, okay, our app has finished building, 5.2 MB. I can easily copy it and install in any Android phone, and that's just it. I can customize the Android app. Likewise, you can build for Windows, Flutter build Windows. You can build for the web, and to be a very small size. So debug console, no, my Android. You can see there are errors everywhere. The error causing the beast view. I intentionally created this error, right? But when you be coding Flutter, like every other program, you might come across bugs. And if you easily copy the error and paste online or wherever it is, let's see. You can easily find solutions from Stack Overflow or from Flutter.dev themselves, because they have kind of, you see, the Stack Overflow community for Flutter is great. You see, they already talked about the expanded, which I did, and all what. So my aim of just doing this just to tell you that they have a great Flutter community. So if not for anything, start writing Flutter, right? So social media, so a lot of people talk about social media. There are a lot of Flutter events here and there. Flutter even have Flutter community sites. Flutter is open to everybody. Yeah, so you're free. You're welcome to Flutter. You start using Flutter if you are not. That said, so there are useful resources in this slide. I think we'll make this slide available. Most of the graphics used in this slide were gotten from some of these YouTube videos or the ideas or something like that. So definitely reach out and get some help with Flutter. Yes. I don't know if the windows are finished building. Oh, I changed the code for the building, so it might not even be a problem. Let's see. Terminal. Okay, building Windows. Did it complete? Whatever. We're not here to building Flutter. So someone asked me what is an IDE. Someone asked me what an IDE. IDEs are, please code, stop drawing on the screen. IDEs are integrated development environments, right? An integrated IDE. Integrated development environment is just a software. You can check online and think about it. It's just a software that permits you to have an editor, is a file explorer, and output with other things, maybe debuggers nowadays and all whatnot. So look at VS Code, for example, Visual Studio Code. So it has this terminal. I can run commands I want to run. I can see outputs of the code I'm running, among others. If there are any problems, to tell me. And then I have the code itself. I have an editor where I can type the code, make changes to the code and all that. I can, and then I have a sidebar. I have access to all the files of this code, all the files of the Flutter project, everything. I have access to other things about the something. So this is an IDE. Other IDEs you can have, like Android Studio, for example. So you can have IntelliJ. You can have different IDEs for different products. So this is what Android Studio looks like, for example. Oh yes. So I can maybe create a new open the project. Let me open this particular project we are in. I think it's in desktop. No, not code folder. Why Flutter? So this is Android Studio. You can see it's an IDE tool. It comes with the editor. You can see it's the font file that I've edited this style at the step where we are in, like with the minus, close tip, minus, and all that. So you can also see the terminal, have access to the terminal, access to running tools, just like VS Code has its own. So that's that for Flutter, that for IDEs. So we're trying to say that as a programmer, your chances are already using an IDE. And if you don't have any IDE specifically using before, there's a problem. You can always get started using a particular one. So Flutter is great tooling. Flutter is great tooling. Before I summarize, are there any questions? Any questions? Yeah, Divine, you're free to speak.
Yeah, I was just wondering about database. Like after designing the app, the interfaces, like that. What about databases, like getting users' data? Do you need to learn a different programming language, or does that cover that too?
Okay. Let me answer that question. So many things we do in Flutter these days remove not just Flutter, like many different platforms, many apps, web, Android, iOS. It's all about UIs, like accessing. And then you ask a very serious question, like, what about database, the backend? So Flutter is a UI toolkit. It's not a backend handling thing on its own. It's a front end facing, whether facing for mobile, facing for web, or facing for desktop. It's front end facing. Now, to answer the question about the backend or something, you have to create a backend yourself, right? So asking me if you can write it in that, there are solutions for that. There's Serverpod, an oncoming tooling for writing backend in that. But you can definitely write any API with your already familiar stuff, maybe Python, Node.js, or wherever, host it and connect. But then talking about it, Flutter has great support for Firebase. As a matter of fact, if you go to Flutter and if you go to Firebase and try to create a new Firebase project, you have the ability of choosing Flutter and setting up for Flutter. So Firebase is a tool. Firebase is a tool. You may want to research Firebase after this. Firebase is a tool that permits you to. Firebase is a tool that permits you to easily like focus on building your app without necessarily, and just it builds the app for you. You can build the app of Firebase without the backend. It can take care of the backend, like it has Firestore, authentication, databases, all the things you're asking for, without necessarily building it yourself. So you may consider using Firebase. In fact, probably you should use Firebase because it's easy to use with Flutter. Okay. Oh, it's muted now. So, Divine, I hope I answered your question about the backend. The truth is about Flutter. It doesn't make sense to expect Flutter to handle backend, no. But at least what we are sure of is that it easily integrates with any backends you want. And if you are worried about which to use, you can use Firebase, or you can build anyone yourself.
Oh, yeah, thank you. I just wanted to add that it will really make sense if we have like a group course like share just because I started learning Flutter by a week ago, and I've been like I've come across some bit of bugs and all of that. So it will make sense we will have like a little community too.
Is it Flutter community?
I mean, here, I assume that everyone here is also learning Flutter or using Flutter. So I'm a kind of a newbie. So just want like community.
We have
support
Flutter
and all
communities now. We have UNESCO communities. We already have. So how did you get the link for this event?
that. Someone sent me.
Ask the person to either link you to me or something. There will be a way out. Like you definitely get. There are so many online groups you can join, and so many people can attend events now. So many.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, Divine. So if there's another question, I think we can call it a day here. We can call it a day. So to round up, we've spoken about reasons why we should use Flutter. It's cross-platformable, and its cross-platform ability is top-notch. You can implement any UI in Flutter. State management is proper. The developer experience one of a kind, and the community is very strong. So all that said, I think implementing UI in Flutter is easy, right? So given that there's no question, we can call it a day. Yes. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for attending.